This is a session on diversity. The importance of diversity cannot be overstated. It was once said that all evolutions come from diversity. It follows from all innovations come from diversity. We're not just talking about gender diversity. We could talk about the racial diversity, economic disparities, and all those. But it is true, there has been traditionally underrepresented groups. I don't think this is a session to pat ourselves on how good a job we've done. There are challenges remaining. That's why we are here. So we'll try to talk about how to make it better. But first of all, I'd like to ask Dr. Dario, from a vantage point of UNESCO, I mean, you might have a broader view, but over the years, how far have we come in terms of getting better diversity, and where are we now?
Thank you. So I think there is no one-fits-all model, and the countries have had a different path towards progress in this area. On average, we may think that latest data suggests that only 1/3 of the graduates of STEM majors were female. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is a progress when we started from very low level. But there are huge differences across countries. For instance, you look at countries like Malaysia, where 43% of the graduates are STEM graduates, because there is one thing. We can talk about STEM graduates, and then within the STEM graduates, we can look how many of these graduates are diverse. And as you said, we are not just talking about women, we are talking about other sources of diversity. So even in a country like Malaysia, where you have 43% of graduates in STEM, you know that only 10% are women. Mm-hmm. So we have gone far. I mean, I would like to put a kind of a word of optimism, because that's important to say that there has been progress. But we are very far from being where we need to be. And even because it's not just to look at the STEM graduates, it's to look how they choose the subjects during the course. If we think about woman, girl, we realize that looking at the latest TIMSS data, the trends in international study of mathematics, we see that grade 8 boys are much more likely to choose STEM subjects than girls. So, of course, when you look at the graduates, you look at those that live with a degree, but how they decide to get there, I think this is a question. Why, and not only the question. We were talking yesterday with Adam, the fact that there are many people that even if they graduate in STEM, they are not able to make the transition on the labor market. So one point is how to get there, and the policies and the intervention are very different across countries. Mm-hmm. It may be giving confidence to girls. It can be really insisting on the importance of the role models. It can be about curricula, but it's not something that there is not just one intervention, I think. Mm-hmm. And progress is there, but we need to do much more, especially when we talk about diversity, because there are, I would say that parents are maybe the key influencer when we talk about the probability for young people and women, especially girls, to start a career, a study path in STEM subjects. And I would add that maybe one important change is the fact that we are moving from STEM to STEAM. So the STEM with arts, and arts and creativity. So there have been changes in the way STEM are thought just to give more space to diversity in it.
I see. The same question, but the context of Korea, Professor No,
Yeah.
what do you think is happening?
I agree with Anna that it has been better, but the progress is still very slow, I think. And for example, in Korea, the portion of women students, female students in science and engineering departments in the university is about 30%. And I think it's lower than we expect, and it's lower than the major universities in Asia, top major universities. For example, in Singapore, it's more than 40%. So I think there's more to go. So I think, still there's a less number of female students in science and engineering. Yeah.
Professor Levitt, we talk about, it seems like you're always talking about the technology aspect of it. STEM subjects, because of the particularities of the subject matters, does that have bearings on the diversity question itself? And also, the second part of it is whether technology will make it better or will influence it enough.
So before I answer on that, I want to reinforce what you said about biology really favoring diversity. People tend to think about survival of the fittest. Not true. True for bacteria, but all other organisms that are interesting have a mother and a father. And the diversity comes from the difference between the mother and the father. So I think it's really important that diversity, and biology is a pretty smart thing. It created all of us so we can learn from biology. So I think diversity being really important is true. And if you go against that for nationalistic reasons, for reasons of male superiority, you're going to lose. To get to the details, I think that we cannot forget the legacy. Science has been a male-dominated field for a very, very long time. And the fact that we still talk about chemistry, physics, mathematics, just shows how old and how long it takes to change things. I got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. The one subject I have never, ever studied is chemistry. I studied physics. I love computers. I'm involved in biology. So it just shows that these definitions are wrong, and these definitions still work against women. Science is too much about the sole wolf male standing up against the outside forces and doing something, whereas in reality, collaboration, working together, is much more important. So I think we still need a lot of development in that direction. I think the subjects themselves, I don't see anything that men can do that women can't do, and vice versa. It seems to me that even just from a simple numerical perspective, the fact that women are not given equal opportunities costs the country a great deal. And maybe in the past, when we didn't need as many people in technology and science and computer science and so on, we could afford to do that. But I think in these times when we have a lot of problems to solve, we can't afford to waste talent. So I think from all these points of view, changes need to be made. And in fact, just thinking about this, the Nobel Foundation tends to favor the sole wolf who stands up against the winds, a very male model. And I think that needs to also change. But I definitely believe enormously in diversity. Now I'm starting to talk about, I sort of say in the beginning there was man, some fit bacterial cell just saying how great he was. And then women came along and suddenly we had all this diversity. I mean, everything you can see is the result of men and women, or man and female, male and female. But I think we can go one step further and have man and woman and machine, and actually have a three-way diversity that will even be more amazing. So that's sort of how I see evolution going. But I think equality for women is is something we cannot afford not to do.
Right, right. It seems like the biology can teach us a lot of, things
I
that
call it-
should be done.
We have AI and we have BI.
BI.
And BI is biological intelligence.
Right. Okay.
Learn
Professor
from
Bone,
nature.
I think, did you have something to add?
No,
Okay.
no.
We were talking about diversity in different settings, and I think that the professor, Dr. Daddio mentioned the parents. I mean, in the earlier sessions, there was a maxim or credo says that you should follow your passions, but many, especially Korean students, follow passions of their parents. It seems like that is either affecting or even hurting the diversity questions. What do you think?
Thank you for the question. Before I answer that question, I think I overheard Michael talking about the importance of role model to increase diversity in STEM fields. So you can imagine how disappointed I was when I see there is no women Nobel laureates visiting Seoul this year. But I was relieved to see Dr. Rowe in the panel. So having said that, so parents and teachers are playing really critical role in adolescent and children and adolescent decision whether or not they're going to enter STEM fields. I'm a motivation researcher, and the two factors that are really critical in one's decision making, whether or not you want to do something or enter such a field, one is interest, and I cannot emphasize importance, any further, and the other is confidence. Your confidence to be able to succeed once you choose to pursue your dreams. But looks like for underrepresented groups in STEM, especially for girls, there are other factors as well. For girls, the other factor actually is a hindrance, is gender stereotype. And what's interesting is that when I do research, and that's true across the world, there is these days no significant difference in terms of STEM achievement between boys and girls. And in fact, girls are actually performing better. Sorry, boys in the audience, but it is fact. So girls are actually performing better on standardized tests. But still, they do not enter the STEM fields despite of their superior achievement. And one of the factors is the constant messages they receive explicitly or implicitly from the environment surrounding them. One of the major social agents who are delivering those messages are parents. So it is interesting when we do surveys among students and parents and teachers, guess what? The younger students do not report gender stereotypes anymore. They pretty much overcome it. But when we do the survey among the parents, they still hold very strong gender stereotypes. In other words, Korean parents especially, they want their boys to be good in mathematics, for example. And they are so disappointed when they do not perform well in mathematics, whereas Korean parents are happy when their girls perform well in math. But when they don't do math as well, the degree of disappointment is not that much. So those are subtle messages, but children and adolescents are very sensitive about those messages. They know what are expected of them. And so I think, if I may share one recent research, when we teach parents about the pitfalls of holding these stereotypes and how that really blocks their children from developing further and reaching their potentials, that works. So I think the goal of education is not only educating children, but also we have to do something with the parents and try to change the culture of the society as well. So one thing is just reduce gender stereotypes. There are other measures, but I'll talk about it later.
Okay.
May I say something?
Sure.
So and I think that as I was saying before, parents have a huge role. They play a huge role. But when we talk about the role model, there are teachers also and female working in these sectors, and very often we see that where their intervention happens, so they go to school, they go to classroom, they can represent something important for the girls, for the students that look that these exist, they have a place in the workplace. And I would add that in addition to stereotypes that are built within the family, and this is something that is very important, especially in countries that have also this still these traditional values, the importance of seeing a man as a doctor and not a female as a doctor. A female may be a nurse, but not necessarily a doctor. There is also the stereotype that are embedded in the textbook, in the curricula. I mean, the way we have done a study some years ago about how many times you could see a woman in a male-dominated position, like being a doctor or an engineer in the textbook, and how many times you see a man and we saw that women are generally represented in traditional roles. They see them cooking, they see them taking care of the kids, while the important professions are attributed in the textbook, in the images, in the example to men. So this is something that is very important in terms of what we can do about changing things. And one thing is that there is increasing the importance of addressing STEM subjects very early in life. So the early you learn to deconstruct the stereotypes in early childhood education already, the early children, girls and boys, understand that there is not a gender position. They will also be less influenced by their parents. Because I think we are talking about deconstructing these stereotypes to improve. And we need that. If we think about artificial intelligence, the fact that algorithms are biased, and there are a lot of bias, because who codes are mainly white men, and there's been studies about who are the coders, the developers. There is no diversity in many cases in those who are behind artificial intelligence development. So to be artificial intelligence, to want to have artificial intelligence that is diverse, we need to have professionals that are diverse in these subjects. Right.
Can I add on about the role of role model that Anna has brought out? That I think it affects female students a lot to see role model, and I think that will affect parents as well to see the success of female role models. And so, like in the national universities of Korea, there is recently a movement of hiring more women faculties in the university so that it could serve as a role model. And for example, in College of Engineering at Seoul National University, about 15 women faculties out of 320 male faculties, or whole faculties. So it's less than 4%. And that's way below with other competitive Asian top-rated universities. And I think universities trying to make efforts to recruit more women faculties, especially in the short list of women candidates to hire more. And I think that will change, a little, to this trend.
Professor Levitt, in reaching the highest level of achievement in the science in a Nobel field, have you seen the kind of environment that steers one way or the other in terms of diversity that may be a kind of affecting factor that we can improve upon?
Well, I'm very taken by the lack of role models. When you said this, and many of my female colleagues have said, but we have no role models. And I think this is a very important thing. Before the session started, I was talking to Adam Smith on the stage, and he was suggesting that a Nobel Prize perhaps go to ChatGPT. And I would much rather it went to human women a lot before. You know, the role model, in some ways you could say, you were saying that there aren't any Nobel laureates for women. There's a small number of women Nobel laureates, and they're in huge demand. Everyone wants them, for good reason. So in some ways, you could argue that the suitability for a Nobel Prize should be your discovery plus the impact of giving you the prize, not for the past, but for the future. And it's clear that giving a Nobel Prize to an underrepresented field or individual has a much bigger impact. So this would mean a change, perhaps, of how they do things. But I do think that, one of the effects of getting a Nobel Prize is that certain people then become more influential. And that needs to be thought about. And I think this is a way in which this could happen. But I would really be happy to see many, many more role model women.
Right. More role models. Probably the environment that we can, best think of is either schools or workplace. So in that sense, I don't know if we can make a regulation to force the workplace to hire more, but we probably have a better school policies to
But
have that one.
my wife, who is a strong lady, says that if there were more women leaders of countries,
Yes,
we'd
exactly.
have a much, much, much better world.
What I
Okay,
was
we
go-
have an experience. I'm not sure, but I'll pause here.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to talk about leadership, in fact, because role model is important, but there is also leadership. And when we look about the number of women leaders, there are not so many. And even in countries where there is this quota, so these this legislation constraints in the number of women needed, for example, in the boards, in the boards, so that there is an equal representation of men and women. This works because there is something that has been imposed and has changed the mentality, but this will not work everywhere. I think that we need really to think about women leaders, not only, I would say, country leaders, but really how they can steer policies, legislations, and also building a society. And there are so few, and this is really important. Next report will be on leadership, and the way leadership is distributed is very important, because what the literature shows is that women manage to distribute leadership. So it means that you have not a hierarchical model where you have a leaders. It is not about authority. It's about giving the example. And this is really about education, I think. And only having this kind of leadership capacity and skills, you can change really the world, I think.
Well, going back to what parents want from their children, probably they're in a way reflecting what the society is saying, whether it be a lack of role models or the biases, the cultural baggages coming from. So what's the solution? I mean, let's go focus on the school, how we can kind of change in the environment. Professor No.
And I think it's important to tell ourselves and to students at school, everybody else, that diversity is not just a thing, virtue to care for underrepresented people. It's not in that level.
No.
Diversity is a power, and it's the source of innovation, and it's source of excellence and creativity, because it can hold many different aspects of viewpoints from the different experiences. So I think it is required, not only in the scientific community, but also as the whole society in general. So I think it's very necessary to spread out that kind of message to the world. Yeah.
We got about 1 minute left. So one sentence, some student, female student who came to you and said, well, in terms of diversity, I'm facing the headwind. Should I go into STEM field? Is that going to be okay for me in the future? What would your advice?
I would say definitely yes.
Yes, me too.
One has to, headwinds have to be faced. And I think that's part of being a good scientist. We, as I said, by not having diversity, we are crippling ourselves as humanity. It's as serious as that.
Professor No?
Yeah, same.
Same.
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah, I would say definitely yes, and I will say something that is important also, the door is open. So if you need advice and counseling, come to see someone that can help you, and don't think that if you find a stereotype, it's something that will block your way through education. So I think this is yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
You're not alone.
You
right?
you are not alone, yes.
I'd like to share one anecdote real quick. I had a student who is visually impaired. He cannot see. He couldn't see. And then he came to me and said, Professor, I wanted to pursue human resource development in graduate school. But everybody that I talked to told me that you better go into either special education
that's right.
or social work. So I asked him, so if I'm a woman, do I have to do I have to study feminism? I mean, I studied something else, so follow your dream. So he's now teaching as a tenured assistant professor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. In other words, headwinds you can overcome. Follow your passions.
Yes.
That'll be my, I guess, one-liner.
Great. Those are the advices. Join me in thanking the panel members on the diversity questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.